Morning, everybody. I wanted to talk a little bit today about one of the aspects of this channel that I have touched on here and there, and that is homesteading when you're aging, when you're long in the tooth. Let's coin a cliche here. When you're long in the tooth, whatever that means. I think it has something to do with horses, because I used to have horses, and their teeth get long, and I think it has to, as they age. You can tell by horses' teeth how old they are. I think that's what it means. And a lot of people get older and they don't have a lot of physical problems. I don't have a lot of physical problems. I've had a couple of accidents that resulted in broken bones and time off. Not from the opposite from my poor husband. He had to take care of me as I take care of him on a daily basis. But yeah, you may age gracefully. You may age, without a lot of health issues. Most people have some, especially since they don't take care of themselves. Many people don't eat well. They don't eat enough animal protein and fat. Women especially need fat. Animal fat, not vegetable oils. Seed oils are dangerous and destructive. But there are a lot of factors that go into how you age. But aging on a homestead is a particularly interesting phenomenon sometimes, because you don't have the luxury of sitting in your house and watching television or sitting in front of your computer all the time. And so they're every day, especially if you have animals. Now, animals especially are what makes this so difficult at times. You have to be out there every day. These animals depend on you. Don't matter if you have chickens, cows, goats, horses, whatever animal you have, even your dogs and cats. But dogs and cats, you're not usually required to go outside unless you're one of those people that puts their dogs outside and leaves them outside all the time. I mean, aside from livestock guardian dogs, which do belong outside with their charges that they protect. But you have to be out there. You have to clean up their environment. You have to make sure they have water and food every day. You have to see to their health needs. You have to make sure they're not injured or the whole gamut. But you have to be there. You have to be outside. In our case, because of the house we live in that has 10 steps, I have to go up and down those steps. I don't know, must be 60 times a day, 50, 60 times a day, to go back and forth to the barn, and then go out to the pasture to run them home from free ranging if they haven't come home on their own. All those factors come into, you can't sit still. I certainly can't sit still. I have recovered very well from my broken bones. I did my own physical therapy. I fired the home health person for certain reasons, who showed up that day, and I had a conversation with her, and I said, I don't need you. And the surgeon he was like, you did what? In the end, he realized I was right. Maybe not right about why I fired her. He would maybe not agree with me on that one, but he said, I'm amazed how you've recovered. He said, I'm astounded. So he was surprised at how well I recovered on my own without help from those people. And that's because I've taken care of myself over especially the last 10 years. I've never really been one to get sick. But most people, how you age can depend on what you've done to yourself in the past. So many of your aging problems are self-inflicted over time. Whether you smoke, or you do drugs, or you take too many prescription drugs. No one achieves health through artificial means. Now, I'm not talking about if I am hypothyroid. I have to take Synthroid every day to keep my thyroid in balance. People will tell me you can get off of that. Some doctors disagree, and I mean doctors who know their stuff and say, well, it depends how long you've been on it, depends on your particular situation, because there's no one-size-fits-all medicine, unlike what the government has told us in recent years. There is no one-size-fits-all. You cannot achieve health through artificial means. You can manage conditions with it, but you cannot achieve health through it. Achieving fine glowing health is different from managing a condition. It's a completely different thing. So where you end up in your 50s and 60s, 40s, 50s and 60s, whatever, 70s, wherever you are, depends a lot on what you've done to yourself and for yourself, and what you've mostly avoided more than anything. So, on a homestead, gardening, very physical, out in the weather. You don't get days off, especially in garden season. Wintertime is a little bit easier, but then again, then you've got the hazards of having to navigate to your barn and back, or wherever your animals are, in possibly icy, snowy conditions. And that was one reason I broke my first bone, was because in the middle of doing our morning barn chores, we had different coops, not just one barn then, it began to snow. The leaves became slippery, and my right foot went out from under me because I didn't have my proper snowshoes on, because it started snowing while we were out there. It was dry before. My right foot went out from under me, my left foot stuck, and I sat on my ankle. That's basically what happened. And I broke both bones, shattered them, had to have surgery on that. But, there are injuries that you're going to have to get into. What if you have an injury? Do you heal as well when you're older as you do when you're younger? Most people don't. Some people heal quite well. I heal pretty well, I think, from both of them. But most people don't heal that well. I prefer not to do that again, because it was hard on my husband, especially with the steps. Now, the second time I broke, when the tree went rogue and hit me and threw me back and broke my left leg, my husband had made a lift. He designed a lift with a motor that can pull up about several hundred pounds. And even an engineer who came here to pick up something we were selling one time, he said, that can take up, 1,000 pounds or 1,100 pounds or something. I forgot what he said. So he said, you're good, put purse on it, whatever. If I hadn't had that, it would have been really difficult. So, fortuitous decision to go ahead and build a lift for, because basically we use it for groceries. And of course it had to be used for a person, me, at one time. Recovered from that. It's been almost 2 years now. I think it's been almost 2 years. It seems like it's decades ago, but it's not been that long. But it has been longer than I thought it had. But whenever you break a bone, sometimes you end up with bone spurs, or you end up with arthritis in that joint. That happens. Can you stop doing what you're doing because you're in pain one day? No, you can't. You can't do that. Aging and homesteading. And there will be people who go, well, I don't have to worry about that. I'm young. I'm in my 20s or 30s. It's like, you know what? Nobody gets out of this life alive and without getting older. And the people who are sneering at you or making fun of you because, oh, well, she's old, she shouldn't be there. Why is she doing that? Why are these people doing that? They're just too old for that. Or, now they're moaning about their problems or whatever. No, I talk about this subject because you can homestead. We didn't start this till we were in our 40s. We didn't even start this until then. We were late starters on the homestead. We were military. We couldn't do that. You can't homestead when you might be transferred any second, and to God knows where. So, no. Aging and homesteading is something people need to think about. Even if they're in their 20s and they're buying a farm, they need to think ahead, because nobody could have foreseen the economy being like this. And maybe some could because they caused it. But nobody can foresee what happened with the economy. And even if you are very young and you are starting a homestead or buying a homestead, think about that house. Think about the steps in that house. You cannot predict the hand of cards that life is going to deal you. You have to play it out. And let me tell you, if this house did not have 10 steps up to the main floor, life would be a heck of a lot easier for my husband and me when I do some boneheaded thing and hurt myself. Think ahead. You've got to think ahead. Nobody wants to think about getting old, but we all do it. And the people who say, oh, psh, and they just crack and moaning about being old. No, I'm trying to tell you, you can homestead in later life, but you damn well better think about that you're going to be in later life. If you're young, you're going to be there. You're going to be where I am. You're going to be where my husband is. You may not have degenerative disc disease. You may not have a knee that needs replacing. You may not have all these issues. But then again, you might be much worse off than we are. And, you know, life is all roses and you know, sunsets and everything when you're very young. But when you're not, and you won't be always, you don't know what's going to happen. So plan ahead. If you're going to build a house, plan ahead. I used to be a realtor, and I had a client, multiple time client. I sold her house. I helped her buy a house twice, and she didn't like a ranch home. She didn't like everything on one level. She wanted all her bedrooms upstairs. She had this thing about being on the same level as the entry doors. And I think it had to do with security. She thought she was not as safe. But she was in her 40s. She wasn't thinking ahead. You know, it wasn't my job to tell her that. It was only my job to find her what she wanted to buy. And I did. And it was something with all the bedrooms upstairs. But I thought, you might not be as spry as you are now. And you're not thinking about that. So people, you need to really think about the future. Can you homestead when you're older? Sure you can. I know plenty of people who started in their 40s, even 50s. Even if you don't buy a homestead per se, you can at least garden, get you raised beds. There are plenty of videos on YouTube that show how to garden when you are in a wheelchair, how to set up your garden so that you can do it from a wheelchair, from a sitting position, even that. And you just have to look it up. Everything you want to know is here on this platform. As much as I complain about this platform, and it has its issues, this is an invaluable source of information like that. It truly is. It truly is. I wish I'd had it when I was learning to quilt. I sure do. I wish I'd had it many, many years ago. I did have it when I learned to free motion quilt. And if I hadn't had that and examples of great teachers on this platform, I don't know if I would have learned. So, because I don't have the resources of close-in teachers and things and places to take classes like they used to teach in the high schools and such in the suburbs where we used to live. So that's all I wanted to say. Everybody is going to become older. You may not have the physical problems my husband does when you get older. You may not be able to lift weights and carry 50-pound feed bags when you're in your mid-60s like I can. And I couldn't either if I wasn't making concessions to this way of life and lifting weights and making sure that I had plenty of protein for my musculature. And you need to think about that. You have to be in shape for this life. You have to make yourself in shape for this life. This is not for the faint of heart sometimes, especially with physical issues. And injuries can happen to anybody. Anybody. A tree could have gone rogue and hit anybody and broken anyone's leg. It didn't do that because of my age. It didn't do that. It did that because trees are very unpredictable. So, that's all I wanted to say. It's just another mention about the homesteading and aging. Happens all the time. You can't get out of this life alive, and definitely not without a few wrinkles and without aging. The people who don't want to think about it, who have their you know, their fingers in their ears and their hands over their eyes. It's like, I can't think about that right now. You better think about it, because it's going to happen to you. And you better make preparations for aging well, aging healthfully, because good health is not through artificial means. It is through your efforts and your education about what the human body needs. And it ain't just vegetables. So, and definitely it's not through injections, especially poison injections or experimental injections that you take because somebody supposedly forced you to take them. Nobody forced you, unless they sat on you and injected you against your will, literally injected you and sat on you to do it. With you fighting, they didn't force you. They coerced you with threats, but you gave in. I know plenty of people who have fought against that and have left their jobs or gotten other jobs and because of their preparation for where they are at that time, they were able to say, take that needle and shove it where the sun don't shine, as you should have done. And people probably wish they'd done, because they're suffering now. But anyway, that's all I want to talk about is aging and health. You need to prepare for your elder years, if you want to call it that. You need to prepare for, especially if you homestead, because this life is not easy for someone who hasn't been conditioned for it, hasn't made preparations to be healthy in it. So that's enough. Catch y'all later. You have a great week. It's a Monday and it's a beautiful day. Bye y'all.